Alright, so it's recording. And we'll just get straight into the questions. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Do you mind just telling us your name?
Lyric King.
Awesome. And we'll get straight into the questions. Can you just tell us a little bit about your childhood?
I would like to think I had a pretty typical childhood. Well, sort of. I grew up in a single parent home, which is typical these days, though. So my mom and my grandma raised me. Started off in Los Angeles, California, made our way up to San Bernardino County, and then we're currently out in Kern. But yeah, typical black family, I think, as far as single parent home, raised by two strong-willed and headed women.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say your dreams and aspirations were as a child?
Recently, I found a container of like old notebooks and things. I'm totally a hoarder.
Yeah.
But supposedly I was supposed to be an astronaut by now, but that didn't take place.
Yeah.
But it definitely was in between the entertainment industry, which I got involved in at a very young age, and then being a teacher. Even as a child, I've always had compassion for other children.
Can you tell us what was your relationship with like your dad, and how did that feel?
My dad and I always had a strange relationship. He was there, but he wasn't there. My dad spent most of his time locked up. Past memories I have of my dad is just really long car trips, going to go visit, lots of like walls, gates, fences, literally been in there for about an hour and then taking 3-hour trips back. When I was about 8, my dad came home. That lasted every bit of about a matter of 6 to 7 months before my mom and him split ways, which was only the first of many. Yeah.
How did that feel, if you can remember, when you were a child and your dad was gone and he was in prison? How did those times feel, or what did you think of those times?
It was frustrating. I felt like my mom, who was trying to do the right thing and not be a stereotype, I was always scripted. As a child, I remember getting in trouble once because they were doing a family tree. And they're like, you're going to put your brother's hand here, your sister's hand here, your mom's hand here. And then me not knowing any better, I go, well, what if your dad's in jail? And my mom's like, he's a truck driver. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. So definitely challenging times. And then also moments where the school had events where they thought they were doing like father inclusion, but what they were really doing was excluding those who didn't have fathers. Father-daughter dances was not something I was able to attend. I also think my relationship with him, I don't want to say I have a problem with authority or men, but being raised by two strong-willed women, I definitely see it as an adult, like the way I interact with men in the workforce or relationship-wise. I hate to say it, but I kind of have this mindset that you can't tell me anything because I've been empowered so much by my mother that I don't need a man, or that I can do it on my own, which could actually be a curse in some situations. Yeah.
What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
My mom is my right hand, like my rib. I'll do anything for her. But I will say, not having my dad in the picture, I think that it's played a part. For instance, the other day, one of my younger cousins asked me a question about, what was your biggest fear as a child? And I really thought about it, and I was like, disappointing my mom. And I think that, like, with my dad not being in the picture, I just felt like that put a lot of pressure on me. I'd already seen her struggling and going through things. The last thing I needed was for me to be a disappointment.
So what were some of the things as a kid that you would do to not be a disappointment, if you can, like, you know what I mean? How does that work as a child?
Going harder than the rest. I didn't go to prom. I didn't do parties. Literally went to school, came home. I didn't want to give her a reason to think otherwise. And it didn't help that I had an older sister who I loved to death, but my older sister was definitely the one who tried to experiment with everything. So I kind of felt like pressure was put on me to be like that golden child, that child that follows the rules and does what's expected of them.
How would you describe how that felt?
Pressure, overwhelming. I have really bad anxiety, and we joke now about it, my mom and I, but I always tell her, you're the cause of that.
Yeah. What would you say you learned from your parents?
From my mom, that anything is possible. I have literally watched my mom take coal and turn it into gold. Yeah. My mom started off in the streets of South Central of Los Angeles, and we are far from rich today, but it is a very far step from where from where she used to be. From my dad, who I now have a relationship that we're working on, I think what I learned from him is that sometimes the biggest gift is absence. Yes. I think if he had been present, there would have been a whole lot worse going on. I don't think my mom's relationship would have been as tight with my grandmother's, who I like to give a lot of credit for keeping my mom on target with us.
Right. Can you tell us about your first love and how that felt? Your first love can be a person, or it can be whatever you associate with being your first love. It can be a hobby, it can be anything.
Hobby-wise, it was poetry. I was probably about 8 when I first heard the NWA tape, yeah. And I was singing it in the fan, and I learned the hard way what bad words were. Yeah. But I don't know, that spoke to me in volumes. And growing up, I've always had trouble with expressing myself with words. Yeah. So at a very young age, I was given a pen and pad by the school counselor and was told to write. So to this day, I have tons of books that are full of my thoughts and things, and that kind of evolved into poetry, which I then, in a way, evolved into rap. I wanted to share my poetry, but I was always nervous. Yeah. So I would speed through it as fast as possible, and people thought I was rapping. Yeah. And it got me applause, so I was like, hey, this is something I should run with. Yeah. But that feeling was, butterflies, yeah. I can't explain it. I was sort of struggling in school with so much going on at home that finally I found something that spoke to me in volumes. Behind poetry, to me, it is storytelling, the art of storytelling. Yeah. And I fell in love with that.
Can you tell us about your first loss or heartbreak, whatever you associate as being your first loss or heartbreak, and how that felt?
Yes. The first time I've heard the phrase often that you can die from a broken heart. And although I didn't die, apparently, the first time I was like, wow, this is actually possible. I had to be about 19. And like I said, I really didn't do much growing up because I didn't want to disappoint my mom. So I actually didn't start dating until college. Yeah. So I met this boy, and I was just so caught up in him, and I just knew it was going to be us. Yeah. And literally, daddy issues kicked in. One night he called, and I had lied to him thanks to my friends and AIM. I told him I was in one location when I was actually somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And he called me, and he just kind of expressed being disappointed, and it ended on him hanging up. Mm-hmm. And I literally felt my heart sink. Yeah. As it played in the back of my head of being a disappointment, and then just, I don't know, I don't like the feeling of letting others down. So I would definitely give that credit to it.
Who would you say first taught you love, and how?
I'd have to say my mother and grandmother. They have huge hearts. From day one, I've been by their sides, helping them give back to those that are less fortunate, working different community events, coming out of our own pockets to make sure the family down the streets has dinner, even if it's sharing hours. Mm-hmm. And verbally too, just constantly, everything is a teachable moment in our home. Walking down the street, and she'll say, you don't stare too long at people, you make them feel bad. Or little things like that, which to me interprets into love. It's teaching me to love my neighbor and love my community and those around me.
What's love to you now versus what it was to you as a kid? How do those two different loves feel, if there is a difference?
Oh, yeah. As a child, as I mentioned, I loved hard. Yeah. And I learned the hard way, just because you love someone doesn't mean they're going to love you in return. Starting with the feelings from my father into relationships. now as an adult, I realize love isn't necessarily a destiny, it's a journey. It's something that takes place on a day-to-day. It's something that is learned. It's something that grows, and you never officially get there. It's a journey, a progress of getting there. And in order to love, you can't have, or you have to be open to the idea of learning to love constantly. You can't have a set mindset of what or who you're supposed to love. So yeah.
Can you tell us about a general good day for you and what that consists of?
Probably involves the beach. Yeah. I love the beach. Some type of music, family atmosphere, good home cooking.
What about a bad day for you, and how do you get through that bad day?
My anxiety makes me an overthinker. So I tend to literally plan out my whole day in my head. Yeah. And it's like from what I'm going to say to what the person's going to respond. And it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen that episode of SpongeBob where they tell him to forget everything but fine dining. And they go, what's your name? And the little people in his head goes all crazy. What's his name? What's his name? Yeah. And that's basically how I am when something from my pre-planned day doesn't go. It's like, well, how do I respond to this? Yeah. So that definitely, I want to say, often is the trigger of throwing everything else out of whack, kind of puts me in a bad mood, and from there.
How do you respond to it?
Now I'm better. Now I know to take moments. I walk, I clear my head, I think, I pray, ask for forgiveness, because I know oftentimes caught up in the moment, I tend to blurt things or I respond based on what's going on.
What are 2 things or people that have shaped you, good or bad? How does it feel when you reflect on them?
Definitely have to say my mother. My mother had a big part of who I am today. I feel pleased because I know that there is not a lot of people who has the support system that I have. And as a kid, I could pinpoint little things here and there that was wrong with my life, but I really had it much better than others. And I thank her for that because I know she sacrificed a lot. A bad thing that helped shape my life. I was in a toxic relationship with my daughter's father. And having my daughter is what helped me get out of that relationship. And although those 3 years, even thinking back on it, were just never thought I'd be that person in that type of relationship, it has definitely helped me become who I am today.
What has inspired you?
I'm inspired all the time by simple things. I'm a spiritual person, so the moon rising, sun falling, that's inspiration to me, motivation, me waking up every morning. My daughter, she's 7, but she pushes me so much. I didn't even realize I need her until I met her. And it's a going joke right now. I always tell people I gave birth to my best friend. She's only 7, but she challenges me. She challenges me in great ways to be better.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
I have a nonprofit, and with the help of my family, we get to...
What's your nonprofit called?
Villagers, Inc. Yes. It's based off of the catchphrase, it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. And we always go out to different communities, we're always doing different things, and to me that is so humbling because I meet so many different people from different walks of lives and different races and cultures, and some of the areas that I've been, it would probably be hard for people to think this is here in America, as far as lack of lights, water, just filth some of these kids are going to school in, but yet they get up every morning with backpacks, dress their younger siblings, and they show up to a class or to a program or an event that I'm throwing, smiling throughout the whole time, knowing they have to go back to the abusive household, the lack of food, the playing the parent. And to me, that's humbling. Yeah. I will quickly bite my tongue to complain, especially during those moments when I know what those babies are going home to.
So within one word Where can we find your nonprofit, Villagers Inc.?
We are on Facebook.
Facebook?
Yes.
Under Villagers Inc.?
Yes.
Perfect.
Also Instagram.
Perfect. What made you want to start doing that?
I started working with kids probably my whole life. 16 was officially I got my job at a daycare. Then I started working in an after-school program in one of the local areas out in the Fontana area. And a lot of my babies were coming to my class, and we couldn't do simple things because they didn't have pencil and paper. So I go home and I tell my mom, I'm like, Mom, like they're expecting me to teach these kids and they don't have the basics. So my mom and my grandmother and we put our money together. We bought what they needed. We gave it to them in like a small event. Not even an event, because I literally popped my trunk. I went to the local apartment that was right across the street from the school, word of mouth. I was like, hey, tell your mom I'm going to be out here this morning. Because I went to the principal and they told me no. Flat out told me not in the budget. So about 10 to 15 kids showed up. And then from there, my cell phone started ringing. I got little knocks on the door. We heard you help so-and-so's family. Can we get help? Yeah. We heard this, we heard that. I take that home to my mom. My mom was like, we're going to do it. Which eventually turned into us putting on huge events where we're bringing out talent, face painting, feeding these kids, prom dresses, new clothes, free haircuts. And then I actually spoke to another friend of mine, and they was like, this is beautiful. How are you paying for this? Where are you getting your grants? I was like, wait, what? I was like, no, we save all year for this. And then that's when we decided to make it official and become.
The next question is, for you to go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war.
I would have to say, although I can think of several scenarios, the one that pops into my head is like the idea of like arguing. My mom and dad used to have some fierce arguments. So that's literally what comes into my head. And then other individuals too, now that I think about it, I think that's just how they communicate. But yeah, those arguments could get pretty deep. That's what I think of.
How did it feel hearing those arguments? And I mean, since the word you think of is war, was it more you witnessing something externally that was like war, or did you also feel it internally when you witnessed that?
I would say internally. It was never abusive in our home. I don't want to say that, but my mom is known to break some things. But the war part would definitely come in. I always felt like I had to choose. So I've often found myself like hiding, like, nope, you're not going to put me in the middle. And then even as an adult, I don't like conflict. Like, I don't like conflict. I don't know how to deal with it.
So same type of question. Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time that you can relate to the word peace.
The night I left my daughter's father. It was probably about 3 a.m. It was pouring raining, and I literally packed what I could pack. But I went to my mom's house, and my mom's my hero. She didn't even ask questions. She just opened the door, and I laid in that bed with my daughter on my chest, and I told God I wasn't going back. And I just felt so much peace because it was a constant like back and forth thing. And I didn't understand why I kept going back, but that night, it was just like, nope, I'm done.
How did that feel when you asked God, or when you made that statement that, God, I'm not going back? What was that feeling? Was that when you felt the peace, or?
Yeah, relief. Like, finally, I'm at a point. I had so many people trying to talk to me and get me out of the situation, but I'm a firm believer. Sometimes it takes that person to hit that moment, and I had been trying.
Can you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life, how that felt, and how you endured?
probably going back to that toxic relationship. It's really weird because, like I said, my mom and them used to always get in big arguments. Mm-hmm. So for a while, I thought it was the normal. I really did. Like, I should have saw the red flags, but to me, it was regular. This is what we do. This is how we express ourselves. And then we come back. Yeah. And then I want to say about a year in, it went from just words to getting physical. And then even then I was convincing myself, like, no, this is how we come back. This is what we do. And then unfortunately, it just began to progress.
Now this is a little bit more personal, but what were some of the things that you were going through internally the first time that somebody you loved actually physically hit you?
Probably shock. Like a this can't be happening type situation, out of body experience.
And then you said that you would pretty much, since you grew up hearing the arguing, you kind of extended that as trying to justify the next step in it, right? Mm-hmm. And then you literally have to have just that moment where enough is enough.
Yeah. Out of nowhere too.
Can you tell us about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
I feel like the correct thing as a parent would be giving birth. Yeah. But after I had my daughter, there was some postpartum there. Yeah. Because now it was like, I am literally connected to this guy for the next 18 years. Him and I actually had a situation in court here recently where he was trying to take my baby from me. So a joyous moment, I would have to say, is having a judge, after literally going back and forth over a year. He has a history that's out of this world, from domestic violence charges from when we were together and before, drug charges, all sorts of things that just shows that he's unfit. But yet, judge after judge drugged me and my daughter in the court for about over a year. And then I finally got in front of a judge, and he was like, this is ridiculous. There is no way this is continuing. Yeah. And then that's when I felt that, like, finally, somebody sees what's going on.
What keeps you up at night?
I'm a doer. I don't feel like there's enough time in the day. I now have a daughter. Also still carrying that golden child legacy. So many people are counting on me. And from working my 9 to 5 to chasing my dreams and making sure my daughter has what she has and the community needs me, and it's not enough time in the day. There's so much for me that it needs to be done. So many people counting on me.
What keeps you going every day?
Those people counting on me.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
I don't think I would have played it as safe. Like, especially like as an adult, now that I know like how much of it actually follows you, I think I would have took more chances, more risk. I was literally a homebody. Like, I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do much. The whole journal thing actually started because the school thought I didn't talk, because that's how introverted I was. Yeah. So they made me write things down. My mom was like, she doesn't shut up at home. And then it's crazy because my daughter is so social. She is so the opposite. And I look at her and I often envy her. Like, man, I wish I was so much braver as her to take those risks and those things. And she will own a room. Well, me, I'd rather find a corner when I was her age.
So, you're alive and well, you're going to make it. Do you feel that you can change that regret you just mentioned?
Yes, that is definitely on my to-do list on a daily. I'm always finding ways to step outside of my comfort zone, always finding ways to just remind myself that we only get one life to live. If you don't do it now, there's no other chance. There's no take-backs. There's no reincarnation in cows. This is it. So try to make the best of it.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
I crave stability from my daughter, from my mom. That's financially, mentally. I feel like when I wake up, there's a lot on my plate to get to the end of the day. And I want stability where I don't have to worry about that. I know we're taken care of.
You're the co-author of your life book. What's your picture perfect ending?
My daughter and I sat down as a project, because I'm a visual person,
Yeah.
and we drew our dream homes. And my daughter drew, she saw the movie with Never Never Land. She saw how huge it was. So our ending would definitely be us owning a large piece of land where all of my family lives on that land. And then we would, in my daughter's words, we'd host our community events on the grounds, and you wouldn't have to worry about bills. I'm like, it doesn't work that way, but I love where you're headed. So I think my ending would be finding success and providing, I guess, like living up to what everybody has put on me.
What have you put on yourself for success?
Taking on those responsibilities.
How would it feel when that event happened?
To be honest, I want to say relief, but every time I reach one goal, I feel like another one is like in the distance that I feel I have to accomplish. So unfortunately, I'll probably be working until literally death. There's always another goal. Yes.
Me too. That's it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, I'm connected.